Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if there's a skillful way to deal with the really tough emotional stuff life throws at you? Like losing someone you love? Well, this new study dives deep into just that. Today we're talking about grief. Specifically, we're looking at what happens in the minds and hearts of people who have lost their spouse, and if there is a particular way to help them feel better faster and for longer. This research is especially important because spousal bereavement, that is losing your husband or wife, is one of the hardest life events anyone can go through, and it can lead to serious health problems. So, the big question this study asks is this: when someone is going through the intense pain of losing a spouse, can we teach them specific skills to manage their emotions, and does one skill work better than another? And if so, what does this do not just to how they feel, but also to what is happening in their brain? Think about it, when you are hurting, sometimes you just want to get through it. But what if there was a way to not just endure, but to actually change how you experience that pain? That is where emotion regulation comes in. It is about managing your feelings and how you express them. The researchers here focused on a specific type of emotion regulation called cognitive reappraisal. This means changing your emotions by changing how you think about a situation. Now, cognitive reappraisal isn't just one technique. It has different flavors. Two of them are psychological distancing and reinterpretation. Psychological distancing is like stepping back and looking at the situation like an objective observer, almost like watching a movie of what is happening. Reinterpretation is more about trying to find a different, more positive way to look at things, like imagining a better outcome. The researchers suspected that these two strategies might have different effects, especially for something as intense as spousal bereavement. They hypothesized that psychological distancing would be more effective at reducing the deep, persistent pain of grief. So how did they test this? They got a group of people who had recently lost their spouse. These weren't just anyone, they all reported a significant level of grief, so they were definitely feeling the pain. They then randomly assigned these grieving individuals into two groups. One group received training in psychological distancing, and the other group received training in reinterpretation. This training wasn't just a single session, it involved 5 sessions spread over 2 weeks. During these training sessions, participants looked at upsetting images related to grief and loss. They were instructed to either just look at them naturally, or to use their assigned strategy, either distancing or reinterpretation, to try and dial down their emotional response. They measured how they felt about these images, how stressed they were in general, their depressive symptoms, and their tendency to ruminate, which means getting stuck in repetitive negative thoughts about their loss. But here is where it gets really cool. They didn't just rely on what people said. They also used functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, to look at brain activity. They wanted to see if the training changed how the brain processed negative emotions, comparing it to a known negative affect pattern in the brain. So, what did they find? The results were pretty striking across the board. People in the psychological distancing group reported feeling significantly less negative affect, less stressed, and had fewer depressive symptoms compared to the reinterpretation group. Let's break that down a bit. For negative affect, which is basically how bad you feel, both groups got a little better, but the distancing group got much better over time and stayed that way even 2 months later. When it came to perceived stress, which is how much you feel overwhelmed by life, the distancing group showed significant reductions at multiple follow-up points. The reinterpretation group, interestingly, didn't show those same significant lasting reductions in stress. Depressive symptoms also saw a similar story. The distancing group showed a significant drop in these symptoms, which they maintained over time. The reinterpretation group, again, didn't achieve these significant reductions. And what about getting stuck in those repetitive negative thoughts, known as grief rumination? The study found that the distancing group significantly reduced their injustice rumination, meaning they thought less about how unfair the loss was. Now, let's talk brain. This is where things get really interesting. Remember that negative affect pattern they were looking for. The fMRI results showed that by the end of the training, the brains of people in the distancing group looked less like that negative pattern, especially when they were trying to reappraise negative images. But get this, the reinterpretation group actually showed an increase in their brain similarity to that negative affect pattern over time, particularly when they were reappraising images. It's like their brains were becoming more wired for negative feelings in that specific context, which is quite unexpected. So what does this all mean? The study strongly suggests that psychological distancing is a more effective strategy than reinterpretation for widowed individuals dealing with intense grief. It not only helps them feel better in the short term, but also leads to more lasting improvements in stress, depression, and rumination. The brain imaging results add a powerful layer, suggesting that distancing might actually rewire how the brain processes negative emotions in a way that's beneficial, while reinterpretation might not, and in some ways could even be counterproductive in this specific context of intense grief. This is a really important finding because it suggests that not all positive thinking strategies are created equal. For deep emotional pain like grief, the detached, objective approach of distancing seems to be the winner. It might be because it helps individuals observe their difficult thoughts and feelings without getting so caught up in them, similar to techniques used in mindfulness. Now, even though the study is really strong, it is not perfect. One limitation is that the sample size, while adequate for some findings, was relatively modest. They also mentioned that the participants were predominantly white and non-Hispanic, so we need to be cautious about generalizing these findings to more diverse populations. Also, they didn't have a group that received no training to compare against, which would have helped them see exactly how much of the improvement was due to the training itself versus natural healing that happens over time. Overall, this research is a big step forward in understanding how to effectively support people going through the hardest times. It tells us that psychological distancing is a powerful tool for navigating grief, and it's supported by both how people feel and what's happening in their brains. This could lead to better, more targeted interventions for those struggling with loss. What a fascinating look into the science of healing. It really highlights how our thoughts can impact our feelings and even our brain activity. What do you think about these findings? Have you ever found psychological distancing helpful, or do you lean towards reinterpretation? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explorations and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.